Hello, it's me, Clyde. If this is your first time finding one of my boring little adventures, you're very welcome here. And if you've been here before, I'm glad you came back. I tend to end up in quiet places. Slow places. The kind of places where not much happens, even when you're technically doing something useful. If you'd like more of these stories, there's a whole playlist of them, all my sleepy travels, and you can find it on the channel whenever you wake up, or whenever you don't. Before you get too comfortable, before your eyes get too heavy, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. That way you won't forget later, when you're already half asleep, and your thumb doesn't really feel like moving anymore. If you decide to become a channel member, you help keep these stories going. And you also get something rather nice in return. I make personalized, sleepy stories just for you. Slow, quiet, and gently boring, the way I seem to like them. All right, you don't need to do anything else now. You can just listen. I'm standing in a forest in Finland. It's the 1800s, though no one here would say it that way. They don't count years out loud very often. They count seasons and trees, and how much daylight is left before supper. The forest smells like sap and cold earth, even though it isn't quite cold yet. Not the sharp kind. More the polite kind. The kind that lets you know it will be worse later. There's an axe in my hands. It's heavier than it looks. Axes always are. The handle is smooth where someone else's hands have worn it down over years. Decades, maybe. The wood has darkened from sweat and weather and patience. I lift it once, lower it again. Not to chop yet. Just to feel the weight. The man beside me, the kindly stranger, doesn't say anything. He doesn't need to. He's older than me. Not ancient, just settled. His beard has frost in it sometimes, even when it shouldn't. And his boots look like they've been repaired more times than replaced. He nods toward the log. I swing. The axe hits the wood with a dull, honest sound. Not dramatic, just final. The log doesn't split all the way. That's fine. We rest. Resting seems to be part of the work here. Behind us, there's a small stack of chopped wood already. Not impressive, but enough. Enough is important in places like this. A horse stands nearby, doing absolutely nothing useful. Its job seems to be breathing and waiting. It's very good at both. Somewhere farther off, I can hear a cow complaining about something. Possibly the concept of time, possibly the ground. Finland in the 1800s is mostly rural, mostly quiet. Most people live off the land. Forests, lakes, fields that work when they feel like it. Industrialization hasn't rushed in yet. It's still thinking about it. People build with logs they cut themselves. They heat with wood they stack carefully. They eat simply. Fish, bread, whatever survived the winter. The man beside me adjusts his gloves. They're wool, thick, handmade. Probably by someone who knows him well enough not to ask whether he wants them. I lift the axe again. It feels heavier this time. I swing anyway. We don't talk much. Talking would interrupt the rhythm, and the rhythm is doing most of the work. Chop. Rest. Breathe. Listen. A bird hops closer, then farther away, then closer again. It looks offended by the axe. I apologize to it quietly. It does not accept. We rest again. The man scratches his beard and looks at the sky, which is already considering evening even though it doesn't feel late yet. Up here, daylight stretches, lingers, refuses to leave on time. It's the kind of light that makes you think you have more hours than you actually do, which is probably why people stop to rest so often. I lean the axe against the log. My hands tingle, not painfully, just enough to remind me they exist. The horse sighs. Honestly, I feel the same. We don't start chopping again right away. The axe stays where it is, resting against the log like it's decided it's done enough for now. Honestly, I agree with it. The older man reaches into his coat and pulls out something wrapped in cloth. He unwraps it carefully, as if it might wander off if he doesn't. Bread. Dark, dense bread. The kind that feels heavier than it looks and looks heavier than it tastes. Rye, probably. Most things are. He breaks it in half without ceremony and hands me a piece. No words. Just a nod. I take it. The bread is slightly warm, like it's been near a body longer than it's been near a fire. I chew slowly. It tastes like effort, and weather, and patience. Somewhere nearby, a kettle begins to complain. Not loudly. Just enough to announce that it exists and would like attention soon. This is how people lived here in the 1800s. Not rushed, not idle either, just steady. Finnish farm life was built around endurance. Long winters, short summers, wood enough to last, or not. You worked when the light was there. You rested when your hands told you to, and you didn't argue with either. The horse shifts its weight again and flicks an ear. A dog appears. I didn't see it arrive. It just is. Medium-sized. Rough fur, one ear higher than the other. Like it forgot what it was supposed to do halfway through growing. It sits. Stares at the bread. Decides I'm not sharing. Ah, fair. I lean back slightly and look at the trees. Birch. Pine. Tall and thin and very good at standing still for long periods of time. People here believed forests listened. Not in a dramatic way. More like the way walls listen. You don't shout in them. You don't waste words. The man beside me finally speaks. Just one sentence. In Finnish. Slow. Soft. I don't understand it completely, but I understand enough. Something about weather and time and how both pretend to be in charge. I nod. That seems correct. We drink from mugs that look older than both of us. The liquid is hot. Possibly coffee, possibly something pretending to be. In the 1800s, coffee was already important here, almost ceremonial. Even when it was weak, even when it was scarce, it was a pause you could drink. I warm my hands around the mug and watch my breath appear and disappear again. The dog sighs. The horse lowers its head. The kettle gives up. Eventually, we stand. The axe waits patiently, and for some reason, that feels comforting. We pick the axe back up eventually. Not because anyone says so, not because time insists, just because the quiet seems ready for it again. The older man takes the first swing this time. He doesn't rush it. He never does. The axe rises, pauses, then comes down exactly where it should. The log splits cleanly, like it had already agreed. He sets the axe back down and steps aside as if to say, "Your turn." I step forward. The ground here is uneven in a friendly way, soft with needles, compressed by years of boots doing the same careful dance. I line the axe up, miss slightly. That's fine too. In places like this, perfection isn't the goal. Persistence is. In the 1800s, woodcutting wasn't a task you finished. It was a relationship you maintained. If you chopped too fast, you tired. If you chopped too slow, winter noticed. So people learned to listen to their bodies and to the wood. I adjust my stance. The axe lands better this time. The dog circles us once, then twice, then gives up and lies down where it can watch both of us without committing to either. The horse shifts again, still very dedicated to standing. We work in silence for a while. The sound becomes familiar, comforting. A thud, a crack, a soft collapse. Somewhere deeper in the forest, something moves that is none of our business. We do not investigate. People here knew better than to chase every sound. Curiosity is fine. Interrupting the forest is not. Between swings, I notice small things. The way sap glistens on fresh wood. The way steam rises from breath and effort. The way the older man hums. Not a tune exactly, just a shape of sound. Finland in the 1800s was full of those kinds of sounds. Wordless, functional, songs for rowing, songs for working, songs that didn't need to end properly. I try humming too. It doesn't help the chopping, but it feels polite. The axe grows heavy again. We stop. Not abruptly. Just naturally. The pile is taller now. Still not impressive. Still enough. The man nods once. Approval, I think. I stretch my fingers slowly, one at a time. They answer back reluctantly. The dog yawns. The horse blinks. Evening is closer now. Not dark yet. Just leaning in. And for a moment, standing there among split logs and quiet animals, it feels like this might be all there is. Which, honestly, is plenty. The work ends without an announcement. There's no final swing that feels important enough to mark the moment. No dramatic pause. We simply stop. The axe leans where it belongs. The logs remain where they've agreed to stay. The forest accepts the change without comment. The older man gestures toward the cabin. Not urgently, not as a command, just a suggestion. The cabin is small, hand-built. Logs stacked with the kind of care that comes from knowing mistakes last decades. Inside, the air is warmer, but not much, just enough to feel noticed. There's a table, a bench, a single chair that seems to exist more out of habit than need. Something simmers. I don't ask what it is. Soup, probably. Most things end up soup eventually. In the 1800s, Finnish meals were practical, hearty, designed to carry you through cold and effort and silence. Potatoes had made their way here by now. Barley, too. Fish from nearby lakes when the ice allowed it. The man ladles the soup into bowls that don't quite match. One has a chip, the other has a crack that's been repaired with something resembling hope. We sit, we eat. The soup tastes better than it looks, which is usually the goal. Steam fogs my glasses for a moment, except I'm not wearing glasses. It still feels like it should. A cat appears. This surprises me because I hadn't seen one yet. But cats don't require permission. It hops onto the table with the confidence of someone who's done this before and waits to be acknowledged. The older man sighs. Not annoyed, just familiar. He slides a small piece of fish toward the cat without looking. The cat accepts. This feels like an arrangement that's been in place longer than either of us. We eat slowly. Outside, the sky continues its careful transition toward evening. Not dark yet, just thoughtful. I listen to the sounds of the cabin. The soft crackle of heat. The scrape of spoon against bowl. The cat's very loud chewing. I think about how people here measured time, not by clocks, not really. They measured it by meals, by weather shifts, by how the forest behaved. Winter would come. It always did. So you prepared. And then you rested when preparation allowed it. I lean back slightly. The bench creaks in a way that feels like a warning and a welcome at the same time. After supper, there's no rush to clean. Dishes wait. Time stretches. The man pours something warm into mugs again, possibly tea this time, and hands me one. We sit quietly. Outside, something hoots. The cat stops chewing to listen. The horse remains committed to being elsewhere, and for a while, nothing happens, which feels like exactly the point. After supper, the cabin settles into itself. The bowls are rinsed and stacked without ceremony. No one rushes. The dishes will still be dishes tomorrow. The lanterns stay lit, their glow soft and uneven, like they're thinking about going out but haven't decided yet. The cat curls into a shape that barely looks like a cat anymore, more like a warm idea of one. The older man sits back on the bench and removes his cap, setting it beside him with care. His hair is flattened where it's been, then slowly springs back in small, stubborn places. He stares at the wall for a while. Not at anything specific. Just the wall. People here were very good at that, letting their thoughts rest somewhere simple. I sit too. The fire pops once, then settles again. The sound makes the cat's ear twitch. It decides this is not worth waking up for. Outside, the forest continues its quiet work. Wind moves through branches. Something rustles. Something else decides to stay very still. In the 1800s, evenings like this were common, not special, which made them special in their own way. There was no rush to be entertained, no expectation that something exciting should happen before sleep. You worked, you ate, you rested. Sometimes you talked, sometimes you didn't. The older man reaches into a small wooden box and pulls out a short pipe. He packs it slowly, carefully, like the act itself is the point. He lights it. The smell is earthy, not sharp, not sweet. It fills the cabin gently and then behaves itself. He offers it to me. I shake my head. He nods. That's the whole conversation. I lean back and let my eyes wander again. The cabin walls are darkened by years of smoke and seasons. Every mark feels earned. I imagine the winters that passed through here, the snow piled against the door, the long nights where this light felt like everything. I think about how people endured. Not heroically, just persistently. The fire shifts, the lantern flickers, the cat sighs in its sleep, and without anyone announcing it, the day officially lets go. The fire burns lower, though no one tells it to. It just decides that now is a good time to soften. The older man shifts slightly on the bench, the wood creaking in a familiar way, like it recognizes him. He stretches his legs out, boots crossing at the ankles, and exhales, a long, steady breath that sounds practiced. I match it without meaning to. Breathing is contagious when it's done slowly enough. The lantern near the table flickers again, casting shadows that stretch and shrink along the cabin walls. They don't look like anything in particular, just shapes doing what shapes do. Outside, the forest has changed its tone. Day sounds have thinned out. Night sounds are considering whether they want to begin. In the 1800s, people here didn't fight the night. They welcomed it. It meant rest. It meant warmth stayed where it was supposed to. The cat lifts its head briefly, blinks at nothing and settles again, tucking its paws beneath itself like it's storing them for later. The older man taps his pipe once against the hearth. Just once. Enough. He sets it aside and leans back, folding his hands across his stomach. I notice how still he becomes when he rests. Not stiff, not tense, just placed. It reminds me that in places like this, stillness wasn't laziness, it was maintenance. People conserved energy the way others conserve money, carefully, intentionally. I let my eyes close for a moment, not sleep, just less seeing. The fire shifts again. A log collapses inward with a soft final sound. Somewhere outside, an owl announces itself, then waits to see if anyone cares. No one does. I smile faintly. The older man chuckles, quietly, as if he knows exactly what I'm thinking, even though I haven't said a word. That happens sometimes in quiet places. Thoughts don't feel as private. Time stretches again. Long enough that it stops feeling like time at all. Eventually, The older man stands. Not all at once, not suddenly. He leans forward first, hands on his knees as if checking in with them. They seem to agree. He nods toward a narrow bed along the wall. It's simple, wooden frame, thick wool blanket folded neatly, like it knows it will be needed. Guests were rare here, but they were prepared for. In the 1800s, hospitality wasn't loud, it was practical. You fed people. You gave them a place to sleep. You didn't ask many questions. I thank him quietly. He waves it off. Outside, the forest settles deeper into itself. Night has arrived fully now, though it doesn't announce that either. The fire is banked carefully. Not out, just resting. The lantern near the door is dimmed. Shadows soften. I lie down. The blanket is heavy in the best way. Wool always is. It presses gently, like a reminder to stay put. The cat jumps down from the table and circles once near the hearth, then curls up again, having decided that this is where warmth belongs tonight. The older man settles back onto the bench instead of the bed. I notice this, but I don't comment. Some people sleep where they always have. He pulls his cap low and closes his eyes. The cabin grows very quiet. Not empty, just complete. I listen to the sounds that remain. The fire breathing slowly. The cat purring faintly. The forest holding everything else. My thoughts drift, not far, just enough. And somewhere in that drifting space, it feels like I could stay here longer than I'm meant to, which is always how it begins. I wake before anything else does. Not suddenly, not fully. Just enough to notice that the cabin feels different. The fire has reduced itself to embers, glowing softly, like it's remembering warmth instead of making it. The lantern is still lit, but barely. Its flame has become thoughtful. For a moment, I'm not sure where I am. Then the smells return. Wood smoke, wool. Something earthy that might be the forest itself pressing close. The older man is still on the bench. He hasn't moved much. Some people don't when they sleep. They simply pause. The cat opens one eye, considers me, then closes it again. Decision made. Outside, the sky is lightening, not bright, just loosening its grip on night. In the 1800s, mornings here arrived gently. No alarms, no clocks telling you what you already knew. The forest decided when it was time. I sit up slowly. The blanket slides away reluctantly, like it would prefer I stay. My breath fogs faintly in the cool air. The older man opens his eyes as if he's been awake the whole time. He nods once. Good morning, without saying it. He stands and stretches, joints clicking softly, like punctuation. Outside, the horse snorts. Somewhere, a bird practices a note and then stops, unsatisfied. Breakfast will happen, work will return. But not yet. For now, the morning waits, and so do we. The day begins without ceremony. No announcement, no moment where morning officially becomes morning. It just happens. The older man steps outside first, pulling the door closed behind him with a careful hand. The hinges sigh quietly, like they appreciate being treated gently. I follow a moment later. The forest looks different in daylight, less mysterious, more honest. Light filters through the trees in thin bands, catching on needles and bark and the occasional drifting insect that hasn't decided where it's going yet. The horse lifts its head and considers us, decides we are familiar enough. Breakfast is simple. Bread again, something warm poured into mugs. No rush to make it interesting. In the 1800s, breakfast was fuel, not entertainment. People here ate to continue, not to celebrate. We stand outside while we eat. The air is cool and clean, the kind that fills your lungs all the way without asking permission. I take a deeper breath than necessary, just because I can. The older man points toward the woodpile. Not the one we finished yesterday. Another. There is always another. We work again, but more slowly. Morning muscles are stiff and unwilling at first. They complain politely, then settle in. The axe feels familiar now, still heavy, but honest. I swing. The sound carries differently in daylight. Sharper, more awake. The dog returns and sits nearby, watching with mild interest. It looks like it expects nothing exciting to happen. It's right. Between swings, the older man tells me something, again in Finnish. Slow and measured. I don't understand all of it, but I catch pieces. Something about winters long ago. Something about how trees grow better when they're not rushed. I nod. That seems right too. We rest. We work. We rest again. Time doesn't disappear exactly, but it does lose its edges. Eventually, the sun climbs higher. The pile grows. Enough. Always enough. And standing there, axe resting, breath steady, forest listening quietly. It feels like the sort of morning that could repeat forever without anyone noticing. The morning continues longer than I expect. That happens a lot. Once the sun is up properly, it tends to linger, especially here, slipping between the trees in a way that makes it hard to tell whether time is moving forward or simply spreading out. We don't leave the clearing right away. The older man sits on a stump and begins repairing something small in his hands. A strap, maybe. Leather worn thin from years of doing exactly what it was meant to do. I watch for a while. Watching turns out to be enough. In the 1800s, mornings like this were valuable. Not because they were productive, though sometimes they were, but because they were predictable. Predictability mattered when winters could erase weeks at a time. I pick up a small piece of wood and turn it over in my hands. It's smooth on one side, rough on the other. Both feel intentional. The dog wanders off, then returns, apparently satisfied that the perimeter remains unchanged. The horse shifts its weight again and exhales loudly, as if reminding everyone that it is still participating. No one disagrees. A breeze moves through the trees, carrying the smell of sap and damp soil. It reminds me of absolutely nothing specific. Those are usually the best kinds of reminders. The older man finishes with the strap and tests it once, twice. Satisfied, he sets it aside. We sit quietly again. There's no rush to fill the silence. Silence here isn't empty. It's occupied. The morning continues without deciding what it wants to become. That's something I notice after a while. The light shifts, but not dramatically. It doesn't rush forward. It just rearranges itself slightly, moving from one tree trunk to another, slipping across the ground in long, uneven shapes that don't seem interested in forming patterns. The older man finishes with the strap and sets it aside, then rests his hands on his knees and looks out toward the forest. Not searching, not waiting, just looking. I sit nearby and do the same. If I listen carefully, I can hear many different kinds of quiet layered together. The distant creak of trees moving against each other, the soft sound of insects waking up fully. Something small stepping through undergrowth and then deciding it would rather not be noticed. In the 1800s, mornings like this were useful for thinking, not for planning, just thinking. People didn't make lists the way we do now. They carried thoughts until they were finished with them. I find myself thinking about the woodpile, how yesterday's work still exists today, how it doesn't disappear just because the day ended. That feels comforting. The older man stands again, slower this time, and gestures toward the edge of the clearing. There's a small path there, barely a path, really. Just a place where the ground has been agreed upon as a direction. We walk it without discussion. The dog follows. The horse does not. Some things know their place. The path leads to a stand of trees that look much like the others, except slightly older. Thicker trunks, deeper bark. The man touches one of them briefly as we pass, palm flat, fingers spread. I do the same a moment later. The bark is cool and textured, carrying years in its surface. Storms, snow, sunlight that took its time. In this part of Finland, trees were more than resources. They were reference points, markers, sometimes even companions. I imagine how many winters this one has stood through, how many mornings just like this it has watched quietly. We stop again. Stopping seems to be a theme. The older man kneels and adjusts something near the ground. A small stack of stones arranged carefully, almost deliberately. Not decorative, practical. He straightens them, then nods to himself. I don't ask what they're for. Asking would interrupt the moment, and I don't feel like doing that. We sit again, this time on the ground. The forest floor is cool and uneven, soft in some places and firm in others. I shift once, then decide it's fine. Time stretches. I think about how people here understood work differently. Work wasn't something you escaped from. It was something you paced. If you rushed, you lost energy you couldn't afford to waste. If you delayed too long, winter noticed. So you learned a rhythm that fit the land. The dog returns and settles near us, curling into a loose shape that suggests it intends to be here for a while. The older man hums again, the same sound as before. Not quite a tune, more like a memory of one. I find myself matching it softly, under my breath. We sit like that for a long time. Long enough that I stop measuring it. Eventually, we stand and walk back toward the cabin. Nothing has changed, which feels correct. Back near the woodpile, the man picks up a few split logs and carries them inside, stacking them neatly near the hearth. I help. The work is simple. Lift. Carry. Set down. There's no rush to finish it all, just enough to make the space ready. Inside the cabin, the light has changed again. Brighter now, but still gentle. The cat opens one eye, then the other, and stretches in a way that looks excessive for the amount of effort it plans to put into the day. It yawns and relocates slightly, choosing a new patch of sunlight on the floor. I pour water into a kettle and set it near the embers. The older man nods approvingly. We sit at the table again while the water warms, neither of us speaking. I trace the grain of the wood with my fingertip, noticing where it dips and rises, where it's been worn smooth by years of hands doing the same thing. When the water is ready, we drink. No ceremony, just warmth. I notice then how settled I feel. Not sleepy, not energized. Just placed, like I belong exactly where I am, even though I know I don't stay anywhere for very long. The thought doesn't bother me. It rarely does. The man stands once more and reaches for his coat. This time, the gesture feels different, not urgent, just complete. We step outside together. The forest looks the same as it did earlier, but I know better now. It's changed. Everything always does. The older man pauses near the woodpile, then turns and gives me one final nod. I return it. There's nothing else to say. Some meetings don't require explanations. They just exist for a while. I step back toward the trees, feeling the ground shift slightly under my boots. The forest opens again the way it did before. And for a moment, just a moment, I consider staying longer. That thought passes gently. It always does. The sitting lasts longer than either of us probably planned. The mugs cool in our hands, though neither of us seems bothered by that. Warmth lingers longer in places like this. It doesn't rush away just because the steam does. The kettle finishes whatever it was thinking about and grows quiet again. A thin ribbon of smoke lifts from its spout and dissolves into the trees. The cat doesn't move. It has chosen that particular section of the woodpile carefully, where the split logs are smoothest and the sun hits just right. I suspect this was tested repeatedly. The dog shifts in its sleep and stretches one leg, then settles again, satisfied. We sit. That's the activity. In the 1800s, moments like this were common enough that no one named them. They didn't call it rest. They didn't call it a break. It was simply the space between doing one thing and doing the next. I noticed the older man's hands. They're rough, scarred. Not dramatically, just honestly. Hands that have carried weight for a long time tend to look like this. They don't complain about it. He sets his mug down and leans forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees, gaze drifting toward the tree line. I follow his gaze. There's nothing special there. Just trees. More trees behind them, and more after that. But the way he looks suggests he's not seeing just what's there now. He's seeing what was there before, and what will probably still be there long after. I think about how much of life used to happen like this. Unrecorded, unremarked. No one thought to document the quiet parts. They assumed those were understood. The man clears his throat once, not to speak, just because it needs doing. Then he stands again, slowly, carefully. He gestures toward the far side of the clearing, where a small stack of tools rests under a rough lean-to. Nothing fancy. Just enough to keep the rain off. We walk over together. He lifts a short-handled tool. Not an axe. Something smaller, used for trimming and tidying rather than splitting. He turns it in his hands, inspecting the edge. Then he hands it to me. I accept it. The weight is different. Lighter, more precise. We spend a while doing work that barely looks like work. Tidying edges, adjusting stacks. Straightening things that don't strictly need straightening. This kind of work doesn't show much when it's done, but you feel it when it isn't. The dog wakes fully and wanders over, supervising without enthusiasm. The horse remains unconvinced that anything important is happening. We stop again. Of course we do. I lean the tool back where it belongs. The older man nods once. That seems to conclude something. The afternoon has shifted without asking anyone's opinion. The light is warmer now, heavier. It feels like the day is preparing to change gears again. I sit on a stump near the cabin and let my shoulders relax. The wood beneath me is worn smooth from decades of exactly this. The older man sits across from me. No words, no instructions, just shared quiet. And for a long while, long enough that it becomes difficult to tell exactly how long, nothing else happens at all. The morning doesn't last as long as it feels like it should. It never does. The sun climbs, pauses, then begins that subtle lean that means the day has decided what it's going to be. Not long, not short, just enough. The older man sets the axe down carefully, making sure the blade rests where it won't nick anything important. Tools are treated like guests here. You don't just abandon them. He brushes wood chips from his sleeves with slow, practiced motions. I do the same. The dog stands, stretches its back in an impressive arc, and shakes once, just to make sure everyone is awake enough to notice. The horse flicks its tail. No one speaks. That feels right. I realize then that this is the part I'm always bad at. Leaving. Not because it's sad, not because it's difficult, but because nothing ever marks the moment clearly. There's no signal, no bell, no one saying, now. the older man meets my eyes. He nods once. Not goodbye. Just acknowledgement. That's often enough. I step away from the cabin, the forest opening slightly as if it recognizes the shape of departure. The ground feels familiar beneath my boots now, like it remembers me too. I pause at the edge of the trees, just for a moment. Long enough to notice how quiet everything still is. How complete. Then, something changes. Not outside. Inside. The small stone in my pocket begins to hum, softly at first. A low, steady vibration like it's clearing its throat politely. A faint glow follows, warm and patient, pressing gently against my palm when I hold it. I take one last look back. The cabin stands exactly as it should. The woodpile is neat. The forest is listening. The older man has already turned back to his work. That feels right too. The hum deepens, the glow brightens. And just like that, the forest loosens its hold. I step just far enough from the cabin that the sounds begin to change. Not disappear, just soften. The forest doesn't stop what it's doing. It simply lowers its voice. Behind me, the woodpile stays exactly where it should. Neat. Enough. The cabin settles back into itself, already returning to the quiet work of existing without me. The older man doesn't turn around again. He doesn't need to. Some goodbyes don't improve when you repeat them. I stop near the edge of the trees and let the moment sit for a while. Long enough to feel complete. That's when the light begins. The light from the stone stays gentle. It never rushes me. The forest blurs at the edges, like it's decided I don't need all the details anymore. The sounds soften. Even the birds seem to pause, as if they're listening for something that's already moving on. I keep my hands steady. The warmth rests in my palms, familiar and patient. There are always places like this. Quiet ones, hard-working ones, places where nothing remarkable happens and that somehow makes them perfect. The cabin fades. The trees stretch, then dissolve into shadow. The hum grows just loud enough to notice, and then steadies again. I take a slow breath. And another. If you're still awake, you can let your eyes close now. You don't need to follow me any farther tonight. I'll be off on another boring little journey soon enough. Another place, another quiet moment that doesn't ask much of anyone. You can find all of my travels waiting for you in the playlist whenever you feel like wandering again. They'll be there. They don't go anywhere. For now, just rest. I'll see you next time.